Sundance has really had an incredible run over the last few years. I mean, giving us movies like Whiplash, Boyhood, Manchester by the Sea,
Get Out
last year alone,
yeah.
that and Call Me by Your Name. So that's great. That's what this festival is about. These movies that can really become stunning works of art and get out there in the world. But the result of all of that is that it kind of raises the bar. And I think everyone came in here this year, whether they acknowledge it or not, wanting to see another movie on that level. I know I did. It's just natural. And frankly, I think the headline here is that we haven't seen it. It feels like a quiet festival. In some ways, even though I've seen some good films, some films I would really recommend, there's a part of me that's still going, where are the masterpieces? I don't think they're here.
You know, I might disagree because my favorite movie of last year, I mean, granted, it's been on the festival circuit, The Writer, a movie by Chloe Zhao about Native American rodeo riders, is here in the festival in the Spotlight section. And the opening night competition movie, Blindspotting, is as good as any film I've ever seen at Sundance.
I would say my typical experience at Sundance this year has been to see a pretty good movie that I end up liking, but in a mild way. Like, for instance, Juliet Naked. It's based on a Nick Hornby novel. It stars Ethan Hawke as this 90s indie rocker who's disappeared, and then he resurfaces and has a kind of You've Got Mail romance with Rose Byrne. I came out and I said, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I think the film was kind of set up a little bit at the festival to maybe be this year's The Big Sick. And I think a lot of people just felt it's no Big Sick. And I think that's one of the reasons that distributors are still circling it in kind of wary way.
In some cases, my expectations are a little lower, and then it leaves me room to be pleasantly surprised. A movie like Colette that stars Keira Knightley as the prolific French novelist who published under her husband's name for the first decade or so of her career. I think the fact of it's a woman's story at this moment about a woman kind of like empowering herself and finding the strength to kind of claim her own voice is something that makes that film.
One movie that I saw that I liked was the opening night film, Private Life. It's Tamara Jenkins' first film since The Savages 10 years ago. Paul Giamatti and Kathryn Hahn playing a couple who have been struggling for years with fertility problems. Once again, pretty good, but a little repetitive, no home run.
You know, another movie that really impressed me performance-wise is Come Sunday, directed by Joshua Marsden, who made Maria Full of Grace here about like 14 years ago. Yep. This one stars Chiwetel Ejiofor in what may be his best performance.
That's saying something.
I mean, he's the actor from 12 Years a Slave. Here he plays an evangelical Southern preacher who has kind of an epiphany one night that sort of casts doubt on everything that he's been teaching and preaching all these years. And it's all about the way that he kind of has to wrestle with that whole dilemma versus the power of the church around him.
So the question we have to ask ourselves is this: are we more merciful than God?
One movie I would really like to call attention to is a film that Ethan Hawke made as a director called Blaze, which is about the late country singer Blaze Foley. And Ethan Hawke has made this fascinating, very lifelike biopic about him that just consists of these scenes where you are drawn into this person's life. He's not a star. He's a nobody. He remains a nobody throughout the whole movie. But that's its beauty. And in some ways, I think Ethan Hawke has made the ultimate hipster movie.
One movie that impressed me here is Eighth Grade, which was produced by Scott Rudin, the same producer who made Lady Bird. And it tells the story of, a young woman kind of like trying to navigate what is that sort of trickiest time period. For all that can be said about Me Too, I think there's something really important about the inherent empathy shown by a male filmmaker reaching out and trying to, instead of retelling his narcissistic own junior high story, trying to put himself in the shoes of a young woman. I think that's what makes that film so remarkable.
Almost inevitably, as has happened at a lot of Sundance festivals in the past, I find my interest and sort of my passion gravitating over to documentaries. There's a movie called Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind, which is a really fascinating portrait that brings you closer to kind of who he was and the way his comic mind worked. And also the Jane Fonda film, Jane Fonda in 5 acts, which I think does feel very much like a film of the moment, because this moment of reckoning, the Me Too moment, I think isn't just about the present, it's about looking at the past. And when you look at someone like Jane Fonda and the way that she dealt with so much of the legacy of the sex roles of the past, even as she was looking forward, there's a tremendous poignance in that.
Traditionally, I would have said with these films, they would almost be stronger if someone else had told their story, if there had been some sort of distance. But I think there's something about this moment right now where it's so critical that we're seeing people being personal and really kind of, it's part of that whole Me Too culture of sharing.
I do think that we are in the middle of a cultural earthquake, and I think we're going to see the effects of that, I predict, in movies at Sundance next year.